Hello my friends, if you like my work, please remember to click thumb up, subscribe to my channel or hit the notification bell to be informed about new videos. I'd just like to say thank you to all my patrons, please join them if you can, the link is in the description below. I wanted to do a project with this model for a long time and finally the time has come when I could start working. I already knew from one of my patrons that this model is so cool and easy to build that I won't have any problems with it and it will even be an easy way. I wasn't planning a big rework or a huge number of additions, but replacing the tracks with Sd.Kfz, adding towing cables and metal antennas was indisputable. I started working with such a set and in a moment you will see how this model looks like in the final effect. I'm very impressed with the quality of the parts and their fit. In addition, the plastic itself is also of very good quality and I had a great time working with it. Of course, as I usually do, I reduce the amount of space that the frames take up and cut out most of the large elements. For me, it's more convenient to look for elements that have already been cut out than to search individual frames. As usual in the case of German armor, there is the issue of line on rubber bandages. I saw wheels from Panzer IV but also from Panzer III and the truth is that they had seams more or less preserved. There were also completely smooth wheels, so to be honest, any solution can be used here. I think it's best to consider how long the vehicle we're building has been in service and adjust the visibility of these lines accordingly. Of course, the lifetime of vehicles on the front line is another issue, so you have to take several factors into consideration. I decided to wipe off all the bandages a bit using an abrasive sponge and a hobby knife. I glued both hulls together with the rubber caps with strong glue from VMS. I cut out one fire extinguisher holder from T-Rex set. You have to do it very gently because it's easy to damage this extremely delicate part. On the exhaust I made a delicate texture using VMS glue once again. It's quite aggressive, definitely stronger than glues from other companies and with a brush you can get a really interesting effect. I mixed VMS glue with AK putty. I know that both of these products are not designed to work together, but I managed to use their properties. The glue melted the plastic and the putty perfectly built a proper looking texture on this rough surface. After drying, I sanded surfaces with a thicker and thinner abrasive sponge. I glued the element back in place and tackled the barrel. Now I have a chance to try CA glue filler, which is used to fill cavities. I don't know how this element is technically called, but I think C-hook, correct me if I'm wrong. On each of them there are two traces of the production process, so due to the fact that I want to use them separately, I have to cover them. It probably can't be easier. 3 minutes of work and parts are ready to use. Definitely better than putty and most importantly, faster. This is what I like. I fixed one of the hooks on the front plate to add the towing cable in a moment. On the example of the driver's seat cover you can see exactly how perfectly the individual elements are fitted together. It's the same with the commander's turret, which I'm not gluing because it will be easier to paint it separately later and adjust the commander's figure. The hangers for the side covers are very easy to assemble. It took me a few moments. All you have to do is clean the parts and glue them in the marked places. Of course, I couldn't leave them perfectly straight, so I slightly bent them in my fingers. I had already assembled the Sd.Kfz set earlier because I used this set to prepare the Open the Box episode. You can find the link in the description, so if you want to see how easy it is to assemble, check out this short video. As you can see, putting them on the wheels is very easy, just like connecting them, even without special links provided by the producer. As I mentioned, to complete the model I prepared antennas from master model. Of course there are plastic antennas in the kit even more than needed, but the level of details in these aftermarkets is the highest possible. The construction is quite easy, but you have to do it with the greatest possible delicacy and precision, of course, due to the 3D printed elements. As a result, we have a super upgrade to the model, which will undoubtedly be visible in the pictures and for the trained eye. In addition to the antennas, I also added towing cables from Eureka XXL. I got a set from the producer in non-standard packaging, so don't be surprised that it's different from what you see in the stores. Preparing the ends and gluing the metal cable is very intuitive, so you don't need any special skills to easily and cheaply improve the quality of your model. I didn't even pay attention to the rope from the set, but I think it's just an ordinary string that can't be compared to this product in any way. I will use it in a thick rope in this or maybe in some other model. Putting the rope on the previously glued C-hook is very easy. You can not glue the middle element earlier, but since I've already done it, I gently cut the eye of the tip and put it on the hook. It won't be visible. Of course, later when the rope is properly formed, I will seal it with a bit of CA glue. I have some links left from the Sd.Kfz set, so I will use them as additional armor for the front of the vehicle. All you have to do is cut off the ends used to connect individual links. In addition, I used the excess from another set to add some standard links. They will harmonize with the spurs that are located at the rear of the vehicle. In this way I got an interesting effect, and after proper painting it will look even better. I plan to paint the Sd.Kfz differently than the standard trucks. For the purpose of presenting the finished model, I attached them using blue tack. And of course there should be some chain. A short piece will help to attach the towing cable. This is how the whole model looks like with all the accessories added. I love its appearance, especially on wide tracks, which adds the aggressive look. Incomplete shields also do the job. Preparing the model is quite an important stage in the whole work. I generally like to minimize the number of parts, but some are definitely better to paint separately. I'm not talking about wheels or trucks because that's out of the question, but more about exhausts, antennas, extra tracks or the commander's turret. It's definitely more convenient to paint these elements individually, especially when they are small. As I forgot to do it earlier, now I specially bought a dozen or so nuts to mount them in the models that I will be building soon. This simple method, which I started using a long time ago, works great. The screw needs to be sanded a little so that it has a slightly rough surface. CA glue is the best glue to fix it in the model. It will stay there forever, but it's not a problem because it will be completely invisible. The model holds up very well, but if you really want to tear the screw out of the welds, it's possible, of course. The only problem is that it may end up with plastic damage. When all parts are ready for further operation, they can be cleaned of dirt and debris from the construction phase. I always use model degreaser, which is perfect for this task. First of all, it removes dirt from every surface, and secondly, it dries, and to be more precise, it evaporates in a few seconds. This allows to start painting immediately after cleaning because the model is dry and its surfaces are ready for paint application. I covered the entire model with a black primer. I use AK Interactive product, which I apply straight from the can. And I start painting with the wheels and more specifically with the rubber rims, which I paint with the appropriate shade. I decided to use mission model paints for this. Generally, if we use a different shade of grey, it will also be a good solution, but why look for it when we have a ready product? For quick application of colors, I use quick wheel mask. They are designed for RFM models, and thanks to them the whole process will run smoothly. First, the rear part of the wheels will be covered with red oxide primer. I know that it's not entirely in line with historical facts, but for the needs of the model and to obtain an interesting color scheme, I will close my eyes a bit. The bottom of the hull will also be red, so the same as the bottom of the fenders. Returning to the wheels, I switched sides and continued painting, but now with Dunkelgelb paint. Exactly the same as the red side, the sand side is painted in the mask. The idler and driving wheels received the same layer of paint. Silver abrasions will be painted later. As a result, this is how the painted wheels look like. It seems to me that it can't be better. Certainly not with a brush or a plastic ruler with circles. Another element is the heat-resistant layer on the gun barrel. Generally, I always paint it dark grey, but not as dark as Panzergrau. Here I mixed 1 drop of black and 3 drops of white. The main color of the entire model is sand from Real Color series from AK Interactive. I covered all the surfaces of the model with it, applying several thin layers. Looking for inspiration for camo covers, I reached for 2 books where you can find interesting painting schemes for many vehicles, including STUG IV, but also STUG III and Panzer IV, because I checked them too. There is so much to choose from and it's hard to decide on something specific. Before I started painting the camo colors on the side shields, I decided to make some mess on the wheels. Some of them were covered with thin green lines. Of course, after weathering, the visibility of these stripes can drastically decrease, but there will always be something visible here and there. When painting camo, it's worth remembering about such a simple thing as a range of the arms of the soldier who made it. If it was done in a field workshop, then all accuracy can be thrown into the trash bin. I'm sure that very often it was done quickly without following any painting rules, just so that the vehicle wouldn't be in one color. On my model I decided on two types of camo. It will be green and brown on the shields and only green on the hull. The size of the spots will also vary. Thin and irregular on the skirts and larger and rounder on the hull. I think it will look interesting and unusual. Painting covers requires a lot of precision and airbrush control. The paint must be well diluted, so it's worth doing some tests on white paper beforehand, because then you can see if the paint stream is properly mixed with the thinner. I try to make the paint have a rather runny consistency and allow me to paint very thin lines. This way it's easy to create the camo pattern you see on my model on the side covers. To paint large spots you don't have to focus so much, but it's also worth keeping a good dilution of paint. Irregularity is equally important. Next part are details. They are more laborious than the previous stage. They require more focused paint changes and often also minor corrections. In German vehicles I spend most of my time painting tools. They are usually glued to the model and makes the work a bit more difficult, but it's still more convenient for me than painting these elements separately. I prepared the exhaust with the base color for stronger weathering in the next episode. I painted the towing cables silver and thus they are also prepared for the next work. With the already prepared paint I also painted the metallic abrasions on the wheels. Spare trucks come in two different types, so their painting will also look a bit different. The standard trucks are painted a very dark brown. After drying with the accelerator I added a wash of diluted dark brown. Thus I have preliminary weathering, but of course it's far from complete. I also painted wheel marks on them and did a brown wash once again. On the Ostketen I applied a special mix of paints that I once prepared especially for trucks. As a result it's a very dark brown with a bit of metallic sheen. I applied this paint both to short extra sections and to entire trucks. Of course this is the base color and probably their final appearance will be different from what you see now. A thin layer of paint didn't affect the properties of these trucks at all. As a reminder, this is a set of quick trucks, a product built using the snap method. The link to the manufacturer's store at the same time the only seller can be found in the description of this video. Before I started painting the last elements I applied a few decals on the model. I used the name from the set as well as the crosses. I cut out the numbers from my stickers that I had from other models. And here is one fix. You see number 103, but it's actually number 104. I accidentally damaged the sticker after applying it to the model. And since I didn't have any more of that number, I changed it to 4. I used a special liquid from VMS, which is Decal Set and Fix, to stick all the decals well. The most spectacular and noticeable element of the painting of this vehicle is the shark's mouth. To paint it you only need 3 colors, a steady hand and a good brush. Oh, and a pencil might come in handy. And see how to do it. I think my comment is redundant here. The only thing I can suggest is that there is a lot of inspiration and ready-made patterns to copy from the internet. You can even buy ready-made decals with graphics of this type. It turned out pretty nice, didn't it? It wouldn't be much better to paint it on the cover not glued to the model, but if you don't remember about some things, then you have to get tired. First, I covered the model with a glossy varnish from VMS. In this way I secured the surface, leveled the places where I put the stickers in the previous episode, and it's above all the best base for the wash. The AK product will be suitable for distribution on the model. Of course, with a bit of thinner I applied the product according to standard procedures in depressions and to emphasize details. I tried to work systematically, immediately killing the places where the wash appeared in too much. On the fenders, to emphasize the characteristic surface, I spread a heavily diluted wash, thanks to which it melted between all the elements that are on their surfaces. I also use it to make dirt and stains, as you can see here. Leaving the wash to dry completely, I decided to test the Pigment Jockey series. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you've probably noticed that I'm not a big fan of rust on vehicles. I have said this many times and I still stand by my opinion. What you see are obviously rusty products, but the effect I want to achieve won't be a typical bright example of rusty element, but I will try to work out something more natural. Starting with the darkest paint, working with the accelerator, I apply successive layers building an uneven color surface. I apologize in advance for the uneven distribution of the exhaust in the frame and for the blurred image, but often turning the elements, sometimes it's easy to forget that you are working in front of the camera. Note that all three paints can be used in different orders. The most important thing is to try to make the colors penetrate, and then it's easiest to get a good effect. Undoubtedly, the universal weathering carrier, which is kind of thinner, is very helpful in this. To the three paints I also added another one provided by the producer for painting trucks, but you can also use it here because it's very dark shade that is ideal for less visible places. In the end, two paints will do some dust. Light earth and brown earth applied in the same way are the perfect solutions to add a realistic finish to the muffler. Notice how often I use the accelerator. In my opinion, this is an essential tool, especially if you want to see how the paints spread and at the same time don't waste time waiting for them to dry. As a result, we get a hyper-realistic coat of paint. I think it's one of the best looking mufflers I've ever painted. Now a few minutes for painting the ropes. This rope on the left side of the screen is already painted. The difference is very big. Generally it's not painting, but rather making a thick wash or filter with a dark color. I wanted my ropes to feel more like unused with heavy dust and a bit of mud. Completely different than how I showed in the video about painting the towing cables. To emphasize the metallic look, I used another pigment jockey, but this time still metallic. I gently rubbed it into the surface of the rope. For the dust, I will use the already presented light earth. Once again, the weathering carrier is an inseparable companion. I was wondering what the order of the application of both paints should be. It seems to me that in this case it would be better to do the dust first and then the metallic gloss. Of course, everything can be improved the more so that when the ropes are already on the model, their final appearance will be refined. I had some paint left to use, so in order not to waste it, I applied it to the spare link of the tracks. Note that I'm doing it for now only on standard tracks, which are supposedly taken from some destroyed vehicle, as evidenced by the traces of use polished with wheels. All skaten are supposed to look a bit different, so first I put on them heavily diluted track rust, exactly the same one I used when painting the muffler. A few links will have a different shade because I apply lighter shades of rust to them, but I still remember not to overdo it with this effect. Some time ago I explained how tracks rust. Due to the manganese that was used to make German trucks, making them orange rust is a big mistake. They should rather be in the shade of milky coffee or dark chocolate. Of course, for the purposes of the model contrast and arousing interest, I deviate from this assumption a bit myself, but everything is under control. I make dust exactly as before and as I have done on this model many times. I apply the heavily diluted product and dry with the accelerator. One layer may not be enough, but two is enough. As a result, the trucks look as you can see. The difference is visible to the naked eye. The side skirts need a bit of love, specifically a little bit of off-road use. Of course, you have to make some scratches on them first. I painted them with a brush and base paint, but also slightly scratched the paint with the tip of the knife. You have to be careful with this because it's very easy to damage the paint surface. Dark base paint and a piece of sponge are a good duo to make chips more visible, especially on the edges. Of course, standard painting with a brush is also advisable and will be a great complement to the previously used sponge. As I already painted the scratches on the side covers, I also did it on the commander's cupola. This is one of the most used places in the vehicle, so a few chips are quite advisable and needed in this place. Once again I reached for the mud kit and finished the side shields. The inner side, although it will be almost invisible, should also be done. Here on the flat surface you can see exactly how to spread the product and what effect will have after it dries. A bit of muddy splashes is the perfect complement. I also did some dried mud on the outside. Still working on the same products, I did dust on the wheels and on the chassis and lower parts of the hull. Ease to application and the effect we get after drying is very good for me, and I am positively surprised by the result and the time I devoted to this stage. With extra hands to help, work should be done faster, but frankly, they can mess up more than help. These are my working conditions. On the upper surfaces, the model was also properly treated with well-diluted products. I had mixed feelings about this way of making the dust, but once again the effect turned out to be almost perfect and dispelled all my doubts. It may seem that in this way I unify the model, losing all individual effects on the surfaces. I have to say yes and no. On the one hand, such a filter makes the model flatter, and on the other hand, it undoubtedly adds realism to the overall appearance. I'm not worried about individual surfaces because in later stages they will be even more varied, so the layer of dust is not a problem here. Before applying the heavier mud, I did a bit of splashing. Many of them will disappear in a moment, but the ones that remain will be nice to build a good looking hull. Of course, I made them on all the bottom surfaces of the model. I stained the trucks exactly the same way as the smaller pieces on the front of the armor. The only difference here is that in some places I added more product, which resulted in better color intensity on individual links. After the first layer it wasn't so visible yet, but the second one worked perfectly and gave the right effect. Of course, drying with the accelerator is necessary, but you must remember to be careful because too much exposure to high temperature can deform the links and burn our fingers. A bit of polishing with a pencil is essential. It's worth checking in advance which places require this work. So it's time for matte. I changed the products to pigment and alkyd binders, which after mixing gives a paste. In addition, with dried grass, I have a ready product prepared individually for the needs of this vehicle. I applied it in nooks and crannies and places where it was most likely to accumulate, trying to leave some uncovered spaces on the sides of the hull. In some places I added the pigment itself and glued it to the surface with a few drops of binders. Matte paste was also applied to the underside of the hull. Pay attention to how small amounts can interestingly diversify the appearance of this part of the model. There was also some mix on the wheels. Idlers and drive wheels are more clogged with dried matte, while on the road wheels I applied matte quite sparingly. I like the effect I got this way. In addition, the same mixture appeared on the side covers as well. Oh, if you are wondering what happened to the previous number on the side shield, I guess this piece is unlucky. For the second time I damaged the paint coating and decided to remove the paint completely and paint this element from the beginning. It took me a while and raised my blood pressure a bit, but now I'm sure that everything is okay. The number is also completely new because these decals are just better than the older ones. I painted some oil stains with variously diluted oil paint. Both on the hull and on the wheels I worked the same method, applying small amounts of paint. Do you remember the pigment jockey I used for towing cables? The same was used to polish the idlers. I corrected the drive wheels with a pencil because more precision was needed here, and cotton bud is not a precision tool. Adding the wheels and tracks was walk in the park. As you can see, once again, quick tracks work perfectly and easily. I definitely recommend it. Green stuff is good enough to do some welds. I needed to weld additional tracks on the front plate of the vehicle. I don't know if it was actually done by the crews of German vehicles, but common sense told me so. My proven tool for making welds is a thin sheet of metal properly profiled and mounted on a comfortable handle. If necessary, it can be properly shaped the size of individual welds by bending the tip with tweezers. A little bit of water will help in forming individual pieces. From some old cable I pulled a piece of wire, the single strands of which are perfect for tying stowage on vehicles. Exceptionally, you can leave it in its natural color, but I prefer it when it is painted or blackened, as you will see in a moment. A few drops of the product are enough to change the color of the wire. After a few moments you can see its effects. It's worth remembering that the blackened surface may wear off, especially when we start working with such a delicate material. However, it's not a big problem if you can see a natural silver color here and there. Leaving the wire to dry completely, I went back to painting the welds, which had already hardened enough. First I painted the area around each of them with dark grey oil paint, which is supposed to imitate the burnout of the paint which was created during welding. I used the same color right away to make the dirt around the hatches. Small amounts of paint and thinner are the perfect combination. In addition, paint stained thinner can also be used. It's worth using it because even seemingly useless liquid can do a good job on the model. I painted the welds silver and almost immediately washed them with the paint I had just used. Work for 3 minutes and the effect is super realistic. The wires are now dry and I can start attaching them to the model. It's intended to be used to attach additional elements. Here, first of all, the links on the front plate. In a moment I will also attach the side covers. Again, I prepare a bit of mud to build more realism and unify individual elements. The edges of the fenders and a little on their surfaces will be enough. From various unnecessary elements I built a stowage on the back plate of the engine. I glued everything together to fit the shape of the vehicle. To cover it with a good looking tarp I will use special paper and product called Paper Shaper. It's a special glue that soaks into the paper and allows it to be shaped. After drying it's stiff enough to paint the element with a brush or airbrush. The great advantage of this paper is that it doesn't tear as easily as regular printing paper. The rips you see on my tarp were caused by overstretching the fabric, but it's not a problem as extra blankets will cover any damage. The glue dries after several minutes and you can start painting. Just before the glue dries, traditionally and as I said in the beginning, I would like to thank again to all my current patrons. You are great guys. It would be superb if you joined this group. Your support is highly appreciated and helps me do what I do here at coldemonspl. And what I love the most. Thanks to this I will try to give you some interesting content to keep you informed and entertained. It's very easy because now there is a chance to enter this superb group without pay a penny for 7 days free trial. This way you can check whether you like what I published for my patrons or not. From technical side, you need to join for free by filling all gaps Patreon wants, and then you can surf on my page with no limits, watch and download all superb higher resolution pictures, watch progress shots, check stories with unpublished in other media's models, read the articles and enjoy other benefits, but about the 7th day you need to decide if you stay with me or go back home. Thank you very much. I painted the whole thing with acrylic paints and the wash additionally emphasized all the shapes. As a result, after doing the whole painting, I have quite an interesting element that will go well with the rest of the model. I tied the stowage to the vehicle using wire. Please note how good the blankets look separating itself from the model. Contrast once again. And one more interesting element, an additional Panther side shield. It was supposed to look like it was found somewhere on destroyed vehicle or lost by an operating tank. In the side pocket that is used to transport spare road wheels, I placed extra jerry cans and sloppy tarp tucked in. This time I used my old method with tin paper soaked in paint and glue. I decided to add 2 old boards to the front of the vehicle. A few drops of wash will color them properly, and proper treatment with torch will add some realistic finish. Of course, you have to be careful with fire because in addition to dry wood, we also have flammable products that the boards are soaked in. An additional tarp will also fit in the side pocket as well as on the front of the vehicle as a diversification of the appearance of additional tracks. As if the tarps were not enough, there is another one to cover the gap between the gun mantlet and the superstructure. The photos show how often the crews use this type of protection regardless of the season. As usual, my model cannot miss a chain. Fix it in the previously planned place with a few drops of diluted PVA glue. One of the last steps was to apply dry grass to the model. For a moment I was wondering how to attach it to the hull. The solution was very simple. Sand and blast freeze diluted with a few drops of water was enough. The application itself on the model was not easy because the surface tension made it a bit difficult to leave individual drops of glue on the model, but as a result it holds all the grass without any problems. Finally, on the dried tarp I added some dust from already proven pigment jockey. I spread the excess with a weathering carrier and dried it with an accelerator. At the end of this project, traditionally a word of conclusion. Or maybe not. thank you for taking a few minutes to check my work. If you like what I do, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click like and write a comment. This will surely be very helpful. That's all for today. See you next time. Cheers!